Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel. Let them turn back and encamp away from the region of Pi-hahiroth, which is between Migdol and the sea, opposite Baal-zephon. In its site you shall place your camp, above the sea. And Pharaoh will say about the sons of Israel, They have been confined by the land, the desert has enclosed them. And I will harden his heart, and so he will pursue you. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was reported to the king of the Egyptians that the people had fled. And the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was changed about the people, and they said, What did we intend to do, so that we released Israel from serving us? Therefore, he harnessed his chariot, and he took all his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots, and whatever chariots were in Egypt, and also the leaders of the whole army. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the sons of Israel. But they were taken away by an exalted hand. And when the Egyptians followed the footsteps of those who preceded them, they found them in a camp above the sea. All the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and the entire army, were in Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh had drawn near, the sons of Israel, lifting up their eyes, saw the Egyptians behind them. And they were very afraid. And they cried out to the Lord. And they said to Moses, Perhaps there were no graves in Egypt, for which reason you took us to die in the wilderness. What is it that you intended to do, in leading us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, Withdraw from us, so that we may serve the Egyptians? For it was much better to serve them, than to die in the wilderness. And Moses said to the people, Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the great wonders of the Lord, which he will do today. For the Egyptians, whom you now see, will never again be seen forever. The Lord will fight on your behalf, and you will remain silent. And the Lord said to Moses, Why cry out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to continue on. Now lift up your staff, and extend your hand over the sea and divide it, so that the sons of Israel may walk through the midst of the sea on dry ground. Then I will harden the heart of the Egyptians so as to pursue you. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his army, and in his chariots, and in his horsemen. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, when I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in his chariots, as well as in his horsemen. And the angel of God, who preceded the camp of Israel, lifting himself up, went behind them. And the pillar of cloud, together with him, left the front for the rear, and stood between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a dark cloud, yet it illuminated the night, so that they could not succeed at approaching one another at any time all that night. And when Moses had extended his hand over the sea, the Lord took it away by an intense burning wind, blowing throughout the night, and he turned it into dry ground. And the water was divided. And the sons of Israel went in through the midst of the dried sea. For the water was like a wall at their right hand and at their left hand. And the Egyptians, pursuing them, went in after them, along with all of the horses of Pharaoh, his chariots and horsemen, through the midst of the sea. And now the morning watch had arrived, and behold, the Lord, looking down upon the camp of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of cloud, put to death their army. And he overturned the wheels of the chariots, and they were carried into the deep. Therefore the Egyptians said, Let us flee from Israel. For the Lord fights on their behalf against us. And the Lord said to Moses, Extend your hand over the sea, so that the waters may return on the Egyptians, over their chariots and horsemen. And when Moses had extended his hand opposite the sea, it was returned, at first light, to its former place. And the fleeing Egyptians met with the waters, and the Lord immersed them in the midst of the waves. And the waters were returned, and they covered the chariots and horsemen of the entire army of Pharaoh, who, in following, had entered into the sea. And not so much as one of them was left alive. But the sons of Israel continued directly through the midst of the dried sea, and the waters were to them like a wall on the right and on the left. And so the Lord freed Israel on that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And they saw the Egyptians dead on the shore of the sea, and the great hand that the Lord had exercised against them. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in Moses his servant.